Hi everyone, and welcome to Gay Solo Travel. I've posted and created a lot of content relating to travel that I've done outside of Canada. Greece, Poland, Turkey, Southeast Asia, Japan. And of course, all of that makes sense just given that this is a travel focused YouTube channel, except lately I've also been posting and creating a lot of content about heated rivalry, but that's also because this is like a gay channel too. And so how could I not? I mean, I'm a big fan of the show if it isn't obvious from, all the videos that I've been posting, and I could literally talk about that show forever. I mean, but recently it also dawned on me that I actually do a lot of traveling and exploring in and around the city of Toronto too. I was born in this city and I know it like the back of my hand. So why not share that knowledge with all of you? With that said, you should know that this is not a laundry list of attractions to see, of sights to see, of restaurants to go to, or bars, or places to shop, right? That's not what this is. This is not a video being told by the perspective of a tourist, right? This is a video being put together by a local, someone who has basically lived here his entire life, right? So this is a personal reflection on the city that I love and the things that I love to see and do in the city of Toronto. Honestly, if someone were to say, "Hey, Angelo, I'm coming to Toronto. What should I see and do?" What is in this video is what I would tell them to see and do. I have a bunch of short videos where I document myself, what I call torture walks, walking from the end to end of a street. Danforth, Bloor Street, King Street. I also have a bunch of shorts and a bunch of other content of different areas of the city, different graffiti and street art that I've seen, different neighborhoods. So I'll create some links in the description in case you want to do a bit of virtual tourism or some additional research through some of that content. But of course, it's all available on my YouTube and also on my Instagram as well. I have two Instagrams, by the way. My main one, which is Traveler Gay Solo with two L's, and Torture Walks. And Torture Walks is where I kind of do some of the edited videos, like the short videos, condensed videos of the biking and walking that I do in the city. And so with that, I would love the opportunity to present to you my personal Toronto top 10. Number 1, visit the CN Tower. Okay, so despite everything I just said, my first recommendation is that you go and visit the CN Tower. Yes, it is a tourist trap. Yes, you are going to be price gouged. But look, the CN Tower is Toronto. Okay, it just is. And not only is it the city of Toronto represented in a structure, I mean, let's be honest. When you think of Toronto, you think of the CN Tower. The CN Tower is also basically visible from almost anywhere in the city. The number of times I'm walking through the city and all of a sudden the CN Tower is just off in the distance is mind-blowing. It is huge, and it is distinct in its architectural structure. When people see the CN Tower, they know it's the CN Tower and they know that it's in Toronto. When you look at the skyline, Toronto has probably one of the most unique skylines in the world because of the CN Tower, right? I would go so far as to say as the CN Tower is a representation or the thing that people think about when they think of Canada outside of, let's say, the Maple Leaf. But seriously, when people think of Japan, they think of Mount Fuji. When people think of Greece, they think of the Acropolis. And I think that when people think of Canada, they think of the CN Tower. I think it's our most distinctive structure and entity. Okay, maybe outside of Niagara Falls because of its unique circular structure, but I still think it's the CN Tower. And I know that Canadians who are watching this are going to cancel me because they're thinking, oh, typical Toronto, typical 416 are thinking that Toronto's the center of the universe. That's what for those of you who are from Canada, that's what they call people from Toronto. That's the center of the universe. They think that we have our heads up our butts. And maybe we kind of do a little bit, but hopefully this video will show you why we have our heads up our butts. Although, I've lived in Vancouver, I've lived in Montreal, and I've traveled all over Canada. So I love Canada, and that's not what this video is really about. It's just some playful heated rivalry between the cities. I don't know why I made that sound, but I did. And I could edit it out, but I don't think I'm going to. Anyways, go to the CN Tower, see it up close, go up to the main observation deck, walk on the glass floor, do the touristy things. There is a revolving restaurant Literally, the restaurant actually like revolves it as a 360. You can book reservations to have dinner there if you'd like. It is quite expensive, but it's also, from what I've heard, worth it, even just for the view itself, or you can go up there and have a drink. Um, if you are in the city during a particularly windy day, I would actually recommend paying the extra money to go up to the space deck, which is the second little nub on the antenna, because that's what that big thing is. It's a giant antenna. Actually, the whole tower is a communication tower, by the way. And yeah, I would actually pay the extra money to go up there on a windy day, because if you are up there on a windy day, you can actually feel the CN Tower, the structure, sway in the wind. And I speak from personal experience because I did it on a windy day, and it scared me. But don't worry, obviously the tower's fine, but it's a unique experience to have, going to have an experience somewhere that isn't, the most unique, if you will. So yeah, try to go on a windy day if you can. It's worth the money. Number 2, bike the Martin Goodman Waterfront Trail. Toronto's catchphrase is a city within a park, and for good reason. The river and ravine system that runs through the city of Toronto is interlaced between all of the city's brutalist concrete and modern steel glass skyscraper structures. In fact, half of my top 10 is composed of green spaces, bike trails, and like walking trails. So I really hope that you like walking and biking. I mean, look, I'm a walk tuber and I have a whole separate Instagram account called T.Orture Walks. You know what you're getting into. You know what I mean? But with that said, I do honestly believe that the best part of Toronto is the outdoors, right? Really, it's the city itself, not just the urban spaces and buildings, but it's the totality of the city, including the way in which all of these green spaces are interlaced and interconnected and operate, through and in between the city, because the city really is an urban space within a really large park. If you want to experience one of the best, and I would say one of the most unique defining features of the city of Toronto, I would bike the Martin Goodman Waterfront Trail, which starts in the city's east end in and around the R.C. Harris water treatment facility, in the eastern part of the Toronto Beaches area, and goes all the way across the city and through what we call the Leslie Spit, all the way to the Humber River area, which is in the west end. Now, I can fully appreciate how daunting this seems, and in all fairness, if you're a tourist, it kind of is. But don't worry, I actually published an article on my Medium account where I outlined for you how to do this waterfront biking tour without having to stress out. And I even broke it down for you in 4 45-minute segments to help you out. Why did I do this? Well, I did this because, one, I wanted to make it more digestible for people who are visiting the city, or even if you live in the city, if you haven't done this waterfront trail, I wanted to break it down for you so that it was easier for you. But I also did it because I would recommend to anyone who doesn't own a bike that they use the city's bike share system, which does have time limits depending on the pass that you get. So I made some suggestions about where to dock and where to like recheck out your bike in order to reset the time. So instead of going into all of that detail here, I'll include a link in the description below, which also explains in more detail how the bike share system in Toronto works. So feel free to check it out there. Torontonians are incredibly fortunate to live in a city that is lined with not only a waterfront trail, but with parks, with green spaces, with beaches, clean beaches that you can go swimming in. There are bars, there are restaurants, there are full neighborhoods built in and around the waterfront. There's a transit system, there's the downtown core, there are office towers, there are condominiums, people live there. There is so much that runs along that waterfront trail, including the exhibition place, which is really busy for 2 weeks out of the year. The remainder of the year, not so much, but for the last 2 weeks of the year, it's home to the city's big end of summer amusement park that is built up and torn down every year, and is something that I've been doing every single year since I was literally 3 3 years old. Not much has changed. The rides are still the same, the games are still the same, but there's a nostalgia element. And if you're from Toronto, you have to go. Like, I would feel guilty if I didn't go. And then actually across the street is the former Ontario Place, which is undergoing some major transformation as well. To the east end is a park that is going to grow and be expanded. There's also a live amphitheater that hosts like concerts. But what used to be the former amusement park Ontario Place is actually being torn down and transformed into a spa, which has been received with controversy, but it's still going up. It's happening. So we'll see what that turns into, as well as it's going to be the home of the new Side Center, which again has also been laced in controversy because people love the former Science Center, which was up in and around the Don Mills and Eglinton area, which was shut down and is being moved to the waterfront. So regardless about how you feel about all of this, the fact is that's what's going to be there. And it's all right along the waterfront. So yeah, if you're going to visit the city of Toronto and you want to get a sense of why the city is called a city within a park, biking that waterfront trail will show you exactly why, as well as give you a visual tour of some of the city's most unique features, as well as the skyline and some of the best green spaces in the city as well. Number 3, walk and ride the streetcar across Queen Street. Toronto's history is told along Queen Street. The street runs from the east end to the west end and is home to iconic structures such as the Eaton Centre, the R.C. Harris Water Treatment Facility, Old City Hall, New City Hall. It also runs through so many important and interesting and dynamic neighborhoods. The Beaches, Leslieville, Riverside, Corktown. It's just above the Canary District and the Distillery District. It goes through West Queen West or West Queer West. It passes through Trinity Bellwoods. It passes through Parkdale, and it ends at Roncesvalles Avenue as well. If there's one street that you should experience from beginning to end, it's Queen Street. Queen Street is lined with shops and bars and restaurants and a whole slew of other establishments. So I actually recommend that you walk and ride the streetcar. I wouldn't recommend biking across Queen Street just because biking can be very tight and challenging as a result of parking on the street and the streetcar itself. And also because parts of Queen Street are undergoing construction to replace the tracks. And I mean, it's somewhere at some point, it's always under construction, as well as the fact that Queen Streetcar actually makes its way right through the construction zones for the new Ontario Line subway line. So, and there's a lot of diversion that's occurring at the moment. So I say that you actually buy like a day pass from the TTC, the Toronto Transit Commission, which gives you 24-hour access to the buses, the streetcars, and the subway system. And yeah, start walking. And when you're tired, hop on and enjoy the lovely view from the big windows on the streetcar. And when you see something that catches your attention, if you want to hop off and do a little bit of touring by feet, you can do that. Just push the button, hop right off, walk around, and then hop on, hop off as you like. Just use it as your own personal hop on, hop off, like I don't want to call it a tour bus, but at least your own sort of touring a transit system. That's the best way to do it, because Queen Street again is quite long, and there's a lot to see and do. And in case you get tired, it's there for you. And by the way, if you decided to do the second recommendation, biking the waterfront trail, you could actually just, at the end of the massive bike ride tour that I suggested you do, you can actually just walk up to Queen Street and then catch the Queen Streetcar all the way back across. So, and if you're too tired, just ride it all the way through and just take pictures and videos from the lovely windows, the big windows on the streetcar. But if you still have energy magically, then you can hop on and hop off, as you like. And so if you did the recommendation for biking across the waterfront trail, I would go from like the west end to the east end or to the downtown core, but I would recommend that you actually go all the way to the east end, but I leave that up to you. But if you didn't decide to do the waterfront trail, or if you're doing this on a separate day, then I would start again on the east end from the R.C. Harris Water Treatment Facility, in part because that's where the loop is, that's where the end of the line is, and then walk and ride across the street all the way across to the west end which does end at the Humber Loop, but you can actually continue onward if you'd like on a separate streetcar. Number 4, the Toronto Islands and Hanlan's Point Beach. One of Toronto's best areas isn't even connected to the city, but it is a short boat ride away. If you want to visit the Toronto Islands, the easiest way to do it is to catch the ferry at the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal, which is about a 10-minute walk south from Union Station. During peak season, the ferry operates every 15 minutes to half hour, depending on which boat you choose, and costs about $10, which, by the way, you can purchase online at the City of Toronto's website. And so that way you can avoid waiting in line to buy your ticket and then waiting in line to get on the boat. You can avoid all of that by just buying your ticket earlier online. If you'd like, you could pay a bit more money and take a private water taxi, which varies, but they usually cost around $15 one way. But as people here know, if you take a private water taxi one way, you can actually catch the ferry back for free. There are 3 main islands that together compose the Toronto Islands: Wards Island, Centre Island, and Hanlan's. And I would say that if you're going to go to the Toronto Islands, well, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I would recommend that you do. I would take the Hanlan's Point ferry to Hanlan's Island, because I would start my day at the Toronto Islands with at least a popover to Hanlan's Point Beach. Hanlan's Point Beach, just so you know, is a clothing optional beach, but it is also a really beautiful beach that gives you a wonderful panorama of the city shoreline and is oftentimes where you find some of the cleanest and warmest waters in the city's beaches, in part because the beach itself is actually quite shallow. So if you stay close to the shore at Hanlan's Point Beach, the water can actually be quite warm during the summertime. Just so you know, and this is primarily geared towards individuals who are watching this video who may not be part of the community, Hanlan's Point Beach is a cherished and historically significant queer space. So if you are going to visit, please be mindful and respectful of that. And please don't go there just to gawk. As someone who does go to the beach himself, there's nothing that makes me more uncomfortable, than seeing people who are clearly tourists who are there just to take pictures and walk around, while people who are there are trying to enjoy, this unique space, right? So it is for everybody, but again, read the room and act accordingly. You know what I mean? And if you get lost, and if you're wondering if you're headed in the right direction, don't worry, Dorothy, because the City of Toronto has you covered. They painted the longest rainbow walkway in the world. I'm not even kidding. After you're done enjoying the beach for however long you choose to stay, I would just continue to make your way eastward toward the Gibraltar Lighthouse, Gibraltar Point, Centre Island. In fact, as you follow the road, it'll curve around towards Centre Island, and there's a main promenade where you'll see a really big, lovely pier where you can go take some pictures, enjoy the view from there. There's also the Centre Island beach that's there as well if you aren't done with the beach and you want more beach. If you follow the promenade back towards the City of Toronto, you'll actually pass by a children's amusement park, Centerville Amusement Park. And there's also a really large sort of cafe restaurant that's just almost adjacent, but across the water from the kids' amusement park, called Carousel Cafe. And I mentioned these two things for a particular reason. So as a bit of personal knowledge, I actually worked at Centerville. I was a carny for like a minute, for like a month and a half, and then I basically quit because I couldn't handle it. It just drove me insane. And also, you're outdoors all day, and it's screaming kids, and it's hot, and yeah. But I actually, because my manager liked me, he actually moved me to Carousel Cafe, where I started my career in the service industry, in the food service industry, that I did throughout my master's and throughout my PhD, and so on and so forth, as a host, and then the next summer as a host and server, and then for several subsequent summers as a server. I have a very personal and special connection and relationship to the Toronto Islands, in part because I spent so much time there during my formative youth, while I was in university and just after university making money. I spent a lot of my summers there. I made some good friends, people that I still talk to, wonderful memories, of, working there. It was the best of times and the worst of times, but I remember the good stuff over the bad. And of course, after we were done work, we would close up shop and then, enjoy the island, in the evening. So yeah, I have a lot of special memories of the island, and it is a very special and unique place. I mean, how many cities have an adjacent set of islands that are so readily accessible and available that mix amusement park and sort of like fun touristy chaos along with this really beautiful reprieve and this like bucolic space to go to the beach and find some quiet or just walk through a park and so on and so forth. So yeah, the Toronto Islands are really great. I would finish off my walking tour of the Toronto Islands with a walk over to Wards Island, in part because you're there, so you may as well, and also because not only is there yet another beach, but one of the most interesting parts of Toronto is on Wards Island. There's actually a small community of around 1,000 people. There's a little neighborhood where people actually own houses on the Toronto Island, and it's located right on Wards Island. So I recommend before you catch the ferry at Wards Island back to the city of Toronto that you do a little tour of this neighborhood of islanders, of people who live on the island, and you stop over by the gardens at the most eastern point and get a few pictures of the city skyline before, of course, you hop on the ferry and head back, where you can obviously enjoy the skyline as well as you head back to the city of Toronto. Rounding out the top 5 of my top 10 is a visit to Toronto's Gay Village, or its neighbourhood, which is located on Church Street, primarily at the intersection of Church and Wellesley. Gay or not, but especially if you are gay, the village is not to be missed. Although the neighborhood's size has shrunk over the last couple of decades, it still manages to maintain its charm and sense of community. And even though Church Street is home to Toronto's queer community, the village really is for everyone, in part because it remains the only real centrally located entertainment hub where you can find a large cluster of event spaces, bars, patios, and restaurants all within like a small radius. Walk the street during the day, but be sure to go back at night, which is when the real fun begins. Have dinner, grab a drink on a patio, check out a drag show, and then dance the night away. Toronto's Gay Village is a great place to spend an afternoon or your entire evening. And if you want a list of suggestions of where to eat, drink, and play, don't worry, I got you covered. I will include a link to the article on which this entire video series is based on that I published on my Medium account in the description below. Thanks for joining me for part 1 of my Toronto Top 10. I will see you for part 2 in my next video.